Alright, so I just got done detailing my truck and I thought I'd do a review or kind of some just observations of Plasti Dip after 4 years. This is my truck after 4 years, and as you can see, it doesn't look perfect anymore. The hood is kind of screwed up because I tried to touch it up a bit. I stupidly used full power degreaser on it at one point, and you can kind of tell where the new paint is, and the old paint kind of goes up here, and it just kind of looks dry. It looks drier than the new coat here. I'm probably just gonna repaint it in the next year or two because it's starting to look pretty faded out, and the sun has just sort of taken its toll on it. It's actually held up fairly well though, and the process of fixing tears and nicks and rock chips and stuff has been fairly straightforward, just using some paint thinner, rubber glove, and just sort of wiping a little bit of paint thinner onto the body and sort of getting it back down, or using a paintbrush with the old paint. Like, I had a big problem around the door here with it separating, just because the way the paint laid down, and then the fact that this door handle sort of moves around a bit, it started pulling up. But now it's pretty good, and no one really notices this all that much. I mean, you got to really be looking hard to see that. Just that defect right there. I mean, I get 2 feet away and you can't really see it anymore. So as far as like off-roading and stuff, I actually hit a tree over here last year, and just doing like some off-roading in East Tennessee, and as you can see, I did scrape off a bit right here. But the good thing about Plasti Dip versus wrapping, especially for off-roading, is that you can touch this up. It's not a huge deal. If something like this happens, because you can just spray some more on there and you're good to go. Obviously, the rattle can anthracite does not match the gallons. I've noticed that it's a lot lighter of a color, and like you can tell right here, this is not matching because it's way too light of a color. And this part of the body panel I've tried to fix, and it just didn't really ever turn out the way I wanted it to. Tried using pre-val sprayer, and I think I got the thinner ratio wrong, and it was just a little too much thinner, and it kind of ended up looking it has sort of more of a matte finish. It looks like shit. But the good thing is, as far as from a distance, it blends decently, but it's not perfect by any stretch. Mud and stuff like that, like there's some weird stuff here. Like, I don't know if something dripped down on this and the sun baked into it. There's some mud splatters and stuff that got thrown up along the side, and I guess they baked in the sun, and it left these kind of dark marks on there. It's one of those things where it just comes with the territory. The finish is obviously not going to be as robust as a clear coated finish, but it's going to actually protect the paint underneath pretty well. So the hood is honestly the worst part, and it's a shame because that's the part that most people are seeing. The other side looks okay, as far as not having anything that I've ever had to screw with over here. For the most part, it's just kind of stayed this way. Fender flares are painted black. They've kind of faded out after some time. I've repainted the grill here because I put the grill insert here, and I repainted this, and you can kind of tell there's a difference in the blacks. Just it's kind of just faded out over here over time, just from sitting in the sun. It's taken its toll. So it's not super UV resistant. Obviously Plasti Dip is not really designed for that, but you can kind of tell that there's just some weathering going on, along the top edges here that really just make contact with the sun. And then, you know, you get some water on it and stuff and it looks okay, but it just looks faded. I have not used any Plasti Dip products on this though. I haven't used any dip wash, dip dissolve, not dip dissolver, dip detailer, which is like the spray wax equivalent, I guess, of what you'd use for Plasti Dip. And it's been, I mean, I'll probably just spend the extra coin when I actually go to repaint this and just use the dip wash and stuff, because I've used regular car wash soap and like thrown in a little bit of Simple Green, like super diluted obviously, but it doesn't really, sometimes it's really hard to get dirt out of this thing. The dirt just sticks to the Plasti Dip and it's really hard to get off. Like here's the bottom here, and there's still some dirt that's just like trapped in the Plasti Dip in a few areas, and it's just kind of, it's hard to get out. And this is actually, I took a 50-50 ratio of Simple Green to water and tried to wipe this thing down. As you can tell, it does have a little bit of an adverse effect. You can see the wipe marks on there, and I took a wet rag with just water and tried to wipe it off and dry it with a dry towel, and you can still kind of see some streaks. Those will probably go away eventually, but obviously if your paint looks fine, don't go doing that, because it'll just screw it up. It does remove a little layer off of it, because when I take a rag that's like that, it has a way of sort of dissolving the dip and making it tacky, and then it just sort of messes it up. So let's see, there's some pin striping right here, and this is just from off-roading. As you can see, it can take some serious pin striping without actually tearing. There's no tearing going on here. And the reason why it looks like this up here is the paint on the roof is super light colored. It's almost faded out in a way. And then there's a lot of stains up here from just like bird shit or whatever, or mud. I'm not real sure what that is, but you can kind of see that there's a lot of stains up here. Thankfully, no one has to look up here and actually look at this, but the hood, you know, could be in way better condition than it is. So that's kind of why I'm just gonna repaint it. The good thing is, you know, I'm just gonna paint right over this. I'm not gonna peel all this off again and start over. I'm just gonna paint right over it with probably more anthracite, because I do like the way the truck looks with the anthracite gray and the black trim. On this first gen Tacoma, looks really cool, very unique. I get a lot of compliments on this truck, especially if I'm at the gas station. I mean, the amount of times people have walked up to me and said, "Man, I like your truck," like all the time, especially at the gas station. It's pretty funny. So yeah, that's kind of what the Plasti Dip looks like after 4 years. Super cleaned up right now. I have used Turtle Wax Ice Spray Wax. Let's see if I got that somewhere around here. No, it's inside. Well, it's in the blue spray bottle. You've probably seen it. I tend to use that on here, and it does help a lot with kind of bringing back the shine, but this dip is so old now that it's not really doing all that much anymore to bring this stuff back to life. It's good to have it on there as a water repellent, but it's not doing much anymore as far as just like adding a sheen. So maybe it's just like past the point of no return. But other than that, yeah, really pretty happy with the way that the I mean, I spent what, $200-300 on this, and I get complimented all the time, and it's lasted 4 years before it really started just kind of looking like ass. And this truck used to be parked outside a lot, so you know, the sun really took its toll on it in a short period. But this thing's been in the garage now, so once I repaint it, you know, obviously the Plasti dip should last way longer than it has, just from sitting outside for so long. So yeah, if you got any questions, feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to answer them. But if you're looking at doing a Plasti dip job, I would definitely. I mean, I don't have any experience with any of the Plasti dip washes and the waxes and stuff, but it might be worth it to spend the coin because it is a little hard to wash this. And yeah, I know, I know a lot of people will probably say, well, you got a lot of texture. And yeah, I do have a lot of texture. When I respray this, I'm gonna be more mindful of that and try to spray a thicker coat on here, because if you spray dip over dip, it makes the dip underneath re-liquefy. So if I spray a heavy coat, it might smooth it out a good bit, but I don't really mind it that much. But it does look really good with more of a satin sheen, and this is more of a matte sheen right now. So if I were to spray it on a little closer, a little heavier coat, it'll probably look a lot better. But yeah, just be careful with full strength degreaser, and as long as you do that, you should be fine. You know, mud and stuff is gonna kind of screw it up, but other than that, I mean, this stuff's pretty stout. It's really protected the paint. It's cleaned up quite well when it does get mud on it. I think the problem is if you do get mud on it and you have it parked outside for a while and it's super hot out and the sun is just beating down on it, it's gonna have an effect on the paint. So just be mindful of that. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have to say. So again, if you got any questions, just feel free to ask. Thanks.